Hello everyone, this is the CircuitPython weekly meeting for Monday, March 24th, 2025. It's the time of the week when we get together to talk about all things CircuitPython. I'm Dan, and I'm sponsored by Adafruit to work on CircuitPython. Let me turn down my gain a little bit because I'm flat topping here. Okay, that's better. CircuitPython is a version of Python designed to run on tiny computers called microcontrollers. CircuitPython development is primarily sponsored by Adafruit, so if you want to support Adafruit and CircuitPython, consider purchasing hardware from adafruit.com. This meeting is hosted on the Adafruit Discord server. You can join at any time by going to adafru.it/discord. We hold a meeting in the CircuitPython dev text channel and the CircuitPython voice channel. Typically, this meeting happens on Mondays at 2 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. U.S. Pacific Time, except when it coincides with the U.S. holiday. In the notes doc accompanying the meeting, there's a link to a calendar you can view online or add to your favorite calendar app. We also send notifications about upcoming meetings via Discord. If you would like to receive these notifications, ask us to add you to the @CircuitPythonistas Discord role. As I mentioned, there's a shared notes document that accompanies the meeting and recording. You can contribute to this document beforehand. The final notes document includes timestamps to go along with the video, so you can use the timestamps in the doc to skip around and view the parts of the video that interest you most. The meeting tends to run 30 to 60 minutes. After each meeting, we post a link for the next meeting's notes document in the CircuitPython dev channel on the Adafruit Discord. Check the pinned messages to find the latest notes doc so you can add your notes for the following meeting. If you wish to participate but cannot attend, you can leave hug reports and status updates in the document for us to read during the meetings. This meeting is held in 5 parts. I'll talk about each part as we get to them. So the first part is community news, and I'll take a timestamp. And this is some items of interest to the CircuitPython community. These items come from the Python on Microcontrollers newsletter, and I'll talk about that more at the end. So first item is that over the past week, both CircuitPython 9.2.5 and 9.2.6 released. 9.2.5 was a bug fix release that had about 75 pull requests in it. It's a new stable release. It had been several weeks since we'd had a release. There are pointers to the release notes in the notes doc. Most notably, we updated further modules. There were some language additions that we did. There are some new additions to display I/O. Audio I/O, that is analog audio, is available on Espressif now. There are some additions to synth I/O. There's SPI Target, also known as SPI Secondary, which is working on SAM-X boards. And there's some initial work on a Zephyr port that's now been checked in. And finally, there are a bunch of bug fixes. Next item is that there are now 600 boards supported by CircuitPython builds. It was 500 not too long ago. Now it's 600. So you can read about that in the newsletter, or you can go to circuitpython.org and see all those 600 boards listed and downloads for each of them. So as I mentioned, this news comes from the Python on Microcontrollers weekly newsletter, done ably by Anne, who works for Adafruit. The complete archives are at adafruitdaily.com. Each week it highlights the latest Python and hardware-related news from around the web, including CircuitPython, Python, and MicroPython developments. If you'd like to contribute to the newsletter or have some news for it, you can do that in a bunch of ways. You can just tag a post with hashtag CircuitPython and Mastodon, Blue Sky, or X, and we'll see it. You can email cpnews@adafruit.com, and you can edit the draft of next week's newsletter on GitHub. There's a link in the notes, and submit a PR. Any of those are absolutely fine with us. So next up, we've got the state of CircuitPython, the libraries, and Blinka. This is a quantitative overview of the entire project. It gives us a chance to look at the health of the project separate from our status updates. We'll talk about the project overall and then separately discuss the core, libraries, and Blinka. So I'll say overall in the past week, there were 32 pull requests merged by 11 authors. A new author I haven't seen before is C. Marks Meyer. Thank you very much. Also Nate in Action and Page 200. I haven't seen before. And there were those 32 pull requests were reviewed by 7 reviewers. There were 25 issues closed by 7 people and 22 opened by 19 people. So even though there were a lot closed, there were a lot opened. So we've got stuff to do. Okay, and next, Jeff has graciously agreed to read about the core.
Hello. So the core is the actual implementation of the Python language, written mostly in the C language. And this week we saw 22 pull requests merged from 9 authors and 5 reviewers. And thank you to C. Marks Meyer, Nate in Action, and Page 200, who, as Dan was saying, may be totally new. And also thank you to Snaky MakerCat, who is a less frequent contributor. And thanks to our 5 reviewers, but especially Lady Ada and ADCC, who are less common reviewers, although I think we'll be seeing more from ADCC these days. As far as pull requests go, we've got 21 open pull requests, of which about 8 or 10 are marked as draft. And that is below our threshold of 25 open pull requests that make one full page on GitHub. Although if you are responsible for one of those pull requests, or if you're waiting on something from us, it would be a great idea to take a look and just see how you can move that pull request forward so that we can get that merged. And if it's not going to work out, it's just fine to close that pull request and come back to it any time. Being honest about it is better than letting it languish. Anyway, on from pull requests, I can tell you about issues. We are up a little bit we're down a little bit in issues, with 22 issues closed by 6 people and 14 new issues opened by 12 people, leaving a total of 764 open issues. Adafruit manages the priority of issues, or communicates the priority of issues through milestones. So we've got several milestones of stuff that Adafruit folk plan to work on, and that includes the 10.00, 10.0x, 10xx, 11.00, 92x, and 9xx tags, which represent things like new features, disruptive new features, and bug fixes. We've also got 624 issues tagged long term. And what that means is Adafruit doesn't prioritize working on those items, but we would really welcome community involvement to work on those. So if you want to work on those, drop us a note and let us know. And in the next section, Tim will be telling us more about how to become a new contributor to CircuitPython. And most of that applies to the core as well. The final category I'll call out is we have 6 issues not assigned a milestone because someone, a human, an Adafruit human, has to go through and assign milestones to all of those issues. And that wraps it up for the core.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. Next up, we've got our library section, and Tim Foamy Guy will tell us about that.
All right, thanks, Dan. This section covers all of the CircuitPython libraries, which are split into 2 main groups. We have the Adafruit libraries, of which there are 354 of those right now, and we have the community bundle libraries, which there are 158 of right now, which gives us a nice round power of 2 for our total library count at 512, which is very pleasing. We have 8, over the last week, I should say, we had 8 pull requests merged by 4 different authors. Thanks to Neardoc, Scott, Relic SE, and myself this week for submitting some PRs and libraries. We had 2 reviewers, thanks to Scott and myself for looking at reviews this week. Of the pull requests that got merged, these were all on the newer side. The oldest one was only 4 days, and the handful of the newest ones were down at 1 day, like usual. That leaves us at the end of the week with 50 open pull requests. The oldest one of those is a draft that's out there at 949 days, and then the newest one is just 1 day old. Issues-wise, in the last week, we had 1 issue closed by 1 person. We had 7 new issues opened up by 7 people, and that leaves us with 705 issues that are open across all of the Adafruit library bundle libraries. And there are just 3 of those right now that are labeled good first issues, which you can find listed over at circuitpython.org/contributing, which is the place where you should head if you are interested in getting involved in CircuitPython. Like Jeff mentioned, this does cover whether you want to get into the core or libraries. I tend to talk about it in the library section, but all of this stuff does essentially apply the same to the core as well. If you did want to get involved, if you do load up that page, circuitpython.org/contributing, you'll find a list of open PRs. Those are links over to GitHub, going to a pull request or some proposed change in a particular library. These are waiting for a person to come along and actually review the change. So take a look at the changed code, if they've got the hardware for it, to try it out on hardware, and then leave a note there on GitHub letting us know how it went. That is essentially the review process. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, take a look through that list, find a open PR that you either have some knowledge of or interest in, or that you've got the hardware for, click through to GitHub, take a look at the change, look it over for spelling, syntax, logic, anything like that. If you do have the hardware, run it, and then once you have taken a look and run it, if you can, leave a comment on GitHub letting us know how it went. If you were able to run it, let us know what you found in the code. If you get comfortable with that process and would like to leave official reviews on GitHub, we can help you. We can work with you to make that happen. Although the comments, frankly, are just as good as well. If you want to start getting your hands dirty, actually submitting your own code and changes instead of reviewing other folks' work, that is also a thing you can get to from circuitpython.org/contributing. Along the top, there are some navigation links. If you click over to the issues link, you'll find a similar looking page that is a list of links over to GitHub, but these ones represent issues instead of pull requests. So they do not have a proposed change yet. They are either a bug or a new feature that somebody would like, new functionality, something like that. And they are actually waiting for a person to come along and implement the change, whatever it is, and then submit a PR with it. If you think that's something that would be fun to do, then we encourage you to give it a try. We have a guide for contributing to CircuitPython using Git and GitHub. We also have folks who are around throughout the week on Discord who are more than happy to help you get spun up. So if you would like to contribute, whether that is submitting your own PRs, handling issues, or reviewing existing PRs, and you're having trouble with any part of the process, whether it's version control or any of the pre-commit checks or actions or anything like that, please feel free to come say hi on Discord. Let us know what you're up to and what trouble you're having. We will be happy to try to help you out. We want everyone to be able to contribute no matter what your background or pre-existing skill sets and things are. So in terms of library updates in the last 7 days, I wanted to call out over in the community bundle, we've got the waveform library, and I think there were a few others that are not listed here that I believe were some other audio related stuff. So I know we have a couple of folks interested in neat audio things. Check those out over in the community bundle this week. And the other one I wanted to mention was in bitmap font. Scott added support for loading the LVGL font binary format, which also gives us support for emojis, which is pretty cool. So check out that stuff if you are interested. And that's what we've got for libraries this week. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Tim. Next up, I'll tell you about Blinka. Blinka is our compatibility layer for CircuitPython on single-board computers like Raspberry Pi. So it lets you run CircuitPython code using CircuitPython libraries under regular Python, sometimes called CPython, which is confusingly also begins with the letter C, but it's not CircuitPython. So that's running on, say, a Raspberry Pi, as mentioned. All right. In the past week, there were 2 pull requests merged by 2 authors. There are now 26 open pull requests. Some of them are really old. Some of them are pretty new. There were 2 issues closed by 1 person and 1 opened by 1 person. And there are 151 open issues on the Blinka library itself. And right now there are 146 boards supported under Blinka, which is a nice high number. All right. And that's it for the state of CircuitPython. We'll move on now to Hug reports. it's a chance to highlight folks in the CircuitPython community and beyond for doing awesome things. I'll start, and then we'll go down list of Hug reports alphabetically. If you are text only or missing the meeting, I'll read your notes when I get to them in the list. So first of all, I'd like to thank Jeff for working on CircuitPython and related things for the past 5 years. He's now going into semi-retirement. I'm not sure if he'd use those words or not. And a long vacation is up for him. So this is his last meeting for a while. So just huge thanks to Jeff for all the years of smart and very productive work on CircuitPython. I've really enjoyed working with you, Jeff, and I look forward to being in touch with you in the future, definitely. All right. Next up is Anecdata, and I'll read theirs. Oh, sorry, I missed 2 of mine. Thanks to ADCC, who's been fixing multiple issues over the past week. And thanks to Gambler21, who did a quick PR review over the weekend, which was really helpful for me. Next up is Anecdata. Let me change the timestamp. Thanks to ADCC for the MDNS fix and in general for ongoing work on networking issues. And next up, we've got ADCC.
Thanks, Dan. I'd like to send a big thank you out to Dan and Scott for all the help that they've given me over the last week. And I'd like to give a big hug to Anecdata for writing some amazingly useful issues with reproducing code that have made debugging quick and easy. And finally, for Jepler for helping me get started with Expressive JTAG. And also a big hug for all the work you've done on CircuitPython. It's rare that I run into a source file that you haven't authored or touched. And that's it.
All right. Thank you, ADCC. Next up is Tim, Foamy Guy.
All right. Thanks, Dan. I have Hug reports this week. Thanks to Adafruit art wizard Bruce for working with me on the Fruit Jam animation and rendering some assets thereof that made my life much easier. Thanks to Neardoc for submitting improvements to CircUp, which allows it to find libraries recursively instead of just code.py. I think that's pretty cool. Thanks to Justin, who has continued working on code in the Learn Guide repo to remove references to secrets.py and get those updated to settings.toml. And then echoing what some other folks have mentioned, hug report to Jeff for all the great things that you've contributed to CircuitPython and the surrounding projects. As well as for meeting up with me to hang out in person on a few occasions. I look forward to the opportunity to do so again in the future once you're back in town and have had a chance to settle in from the trip. That's what I have for this week. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Okay, next up is Jeff.
Hello. So I want to start off with a hug for Mark Gambler, who posted up some ongoing audio work on Mastodon that I happened to see this morning. Hugs to Foamy Guy and ADCC. With you here and contributing to the core, you're making me feel better about stepping away. Of course, a group hug to the whole community. I'm proud of the 5-ish years, and I should probably call it 6-ish years because I did about a half year before I went on the Adafruit contractor role. Anyway, the 6-ish years I've spent working for Adafruit, mostly on CircuitPython. And finally, I'm just honored to be a part of the community. The attitude of folks here, both Adafruit people and customers, community, has been amazing. And it's a total antidote and total opposite of kind of my professional life before that in software development. So I've learned that we can be kind to each other and help each other and not just be butting heads all the time and be generally grumpy. So it's been really, really good. And that's what I've got to say.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. All right. Next up, we've got Jerry.
Yeah, just let's see. Yeah, thank you, Jeff, for all you've done for this community and all you will do in the future. But and best wishes on your new endeavors. Have fun.
All right, thanks.
Kat says hi too.
All right, and next I'll be reading the 2 last ones. First is Mark Gambler, who says, thanks to Cooper for continuing to let me bounce ideas off him on audio changes. And also thanks to Jeff. Huge thanks for all your work and help on a huge variety of CircuitPython topics and always having kind words for everyone. And finally, Toddbot. huge hug to Jepler for all his work on CircuitPython, and we've all echoed that, and we will repeat it. All right, thank you, everybody. We'll move on to status updates. Now, this is our time to tell folks what we're up to individually. I'll start, and we'll go through the list of as before. When I call you, take a couple of minutes to talk about what you've been doing since the last meeting and what you might be doing until the next meeting. If a discussion becomes too long for status updates, we can move it to In the Weeds, the In the Weeds section. All right. So let me fix my timestamp here. No, 1950. There we go. Okay. So last week I released CircuitPython 9.2.5. A user then reported a regression that prevented remounting CircuitPython as read-write to Python. So that would have broken anything that, say, for instance, wanted to do logging to CircuitPy. So I fixed that, and I released 9.2.6 to include that fix, and there were one or two other things in there too. Did that this weekend. There are a couple of more regressions in 9.2.5 from 9.2.4 that I think we should fix, and I'll try to make a 9.2.7 as soon as we get those bugs fixed. Another thing that I did was there were some recent issues on documentation, which I had pegged for 9.2x, so I fixed those, and I ended up looking at all the documentation related issues, and I fixed 7 of them as long as I was doing some writing. So that was like 7 out of 10 or something. So it knocks off a bunch of long pending ones, including some ones that were in long term. So I feel good about that. The upcoming FruitJam board definition has had some changes in hardware, and so I had a PR to correct some pins and button labels in there. And finally, I did a bunch of stuff on issue triage, moving things from 9.2x or 9xx onward to 10 that don't need to be fixed right away, since we'd like to start working on 10 in earnest. All right, next up is ADCC.
Okay, so last week I fixed several bugs that came out of the issue triage, and this week I intend to continue doing the same. And I've been learning my way around the expressive builds and getting to know how to use the debugging tools on that part. Very interesting. And that's it.
All right, thanks. All right, next up we've got Tim, Foamy Guy.
All right, I have been working largely on the FruitJam animation since the second half of last week. I walked through the code that I had at the time on Deep Dive if anyone is interested in how it's working, and I also have pushed it to a repo, and I've updated it a few times since. So if anyone wants to see the code behind that, it's out there, but we will make probably a more official place to release it soon. In working on this, found a couple of issues, one with audio playback and one with display performance under certain conditions. I've submitted those into their respective repos, and I've got some more stuff to try Hug Report as well, thanks to ADCC with something to try on that display one. So I'll try that out this afternoon as well. I updated the CircuitPython port of the matrix rain code to use more colors and to add the letters from Adafruit and Jam into the sprite sheet that it uses for the falling glyphs. I cleaned up the code and commented it and submitted that to the Learn repo, so I will next add a page in that matrix Learn guide with the CircuitPython version of the code. Over this past weekend, I made a launcher menu that runs on the FruitJam or MetroRP 2350. It lets you click between 6 different applications, and then you can play whatever app it is or game, and once you're done, you can exit back out and go back to the menu. Currently, it uses the mouse to control which one is going to launch, but I do have plans to make it support the keyboard and gamepad as well, and also to add pagination so that it can have more than just 6 things. You'll be able to page through kind of a grid of icons, essentially. While I was working on that, the main hardware device that I've been using is a combination keyboard and mouse, and up to this point, I've been using it only as a keyboard only, and CircuitPython recognizes it for that and lets, automatically configures it to use with sys.in, which is super helpful. But over the weekend while I was working on this menu, I started tinkering with the trying to figure out how to read from the mouse half of that as well, and figured out how to do that. So now I can use the mouse on, in my case, it's a trackpad, but I can use that on my combo device for the menu, and then launch a game which uses the actual keyboard input to play the game, and then exit back out of the game and get back to the menu and use the trackpad once again. So all of that is working, and I was pretty stoked to get it there. And then the last thing I have is I cleaned up the code and the doc strings and submitted a PR with color converter support for the tile palette mapper module that I've been working on recently. I suspect there will be some more to do with it, but I wanted to get that in and get eyes on it when people have the chance. And that's what I've been up to. Thanks.
All right, thank you. And for our last person in status updates, we've got Jeff.
Hello. So all my work over the past weeks has been in Arduino or Pico SDK land. It's been a case of doing what Lemore needs done, and that's a lot of FruitJam related coding in those other programming environments, not in CircuitPython. So my official date to wrap everything up is this Friday, and then I'm leaving Tuesday, April 1st for an extended trip in Europe. In the notes document, I put a couple of links in if you want to follow me on the Fediverse, systems like Mastodon, both kind of my stuff I just post up randomly, and also a place that I'll be posting up travel photos on 2 separate accounts. There's a lot of stuff that I would still love to do in the CircuitPython world, and I do plan that I will come back and work more with Adafruit and CircuitPython, but all those details are up in the air. The only thing I can tell you is not before August. And that's what I've got, and thank you again for the time working with you people.
All right, you're so welcome, Jeff, and thank you. Okay, so we've got nothing in the weeds section, so we'll just wrap up for this week. And thanks, Tim, for writing that next week's meeting is on Monday. It'll be Monday, March 31st at this same time on U.S. time. And if you have I know that there are some daylight savings time transitions happening over the next weekend. So if you're not in the U.S., then check the time again if you need to. And that's it. Thank you, everybody. And I'll stop recording.